Chosen one, your true family has been searching for you. Stop for a moment. Don't scroll past this message. Because there is a reason you feel like you have never completely belonged anywhere. There is a reason certain people walked away from your life. There is a reason you spent years wondering why your heart felt different from everyone else's. And there is a reason this message found you now. Chosen one. What if the feeling you've carried for so long wasn't rejection? What if it was preparation? What if the people you thought were your only family were never the full picture of who you were meant to become? And what if, right now, something is beginning to change? Something you cannot see yet, but something your spirit has been sensing. Your true family has been searching for you, not necessarily in the way you imagine. This isn't simply about finding people who share your last name. This is deeper. It is about finding the people who recognize your heart, the people who understand the road you've walked, the people who don't need you to explain why you've survived certain things, the people who don't make you feel like you have to shrink yourself just to belong. Because there is a strange kind of loneliness that happens when you are surrounded by people, but still feel completely alone. Maybe you've experienced that. You've sat in a room full of people and somehow felt invisible. You've smiled when you were hurting. You've said, "I'm fine," when there was an entire storm happening inside you. And sometimes you wondered, why am I so different? Why don't they understand me? Why does my life feel like I'm walking a road nobody else can see? Chosen one, listen carefully. Your difference does not automatically mean something is wrong with you. Sometimes the season of separation is preparing you for the season of recognition. And this is where your story begins to change. Because you may have spent years trying to be accepted by people who were never capable of understanding the person you were becoming. You tried to explain yourself. You tried to prove your heart. You tried to keep relationships alive even when they were draining everything inside you. You kept asking yourself what you had done wrong. But perhaps the bigger question was never, what is wrong with me? Or perhaps the question was, why am I trying so hard to belong somewhere I was never meant to remain? Think about that for a moment. Because sometimes heaven doesn't remove people from your life because you are unworthy of love. Sometimes people leave because their chapter in your story has ended. And yes, that hurts. It hurts when someone you trusted suddenly becomes distant. It hurts when someone you thought would stay chooses to walk away. It hurts when you realize that some people only loved the version of you that was convenient for them. But there comes a moment when you stop chasing people who have already decided to leave. You stop begging for a seat at tables where your presence is tolerated instead of valued, and you begin asking God for something different. Not more people, the right people, not attention, recognition, not temporary companionship, real connection. And maybe that's why this message is reaching you. Because your next chapter may not be about becoming someone new. It may be about finally recognizing who you already are. Your true family may not arrive with a dramatic announcement. They may appear through small moments. A conversation that feels strangely familiar. A person who understands something about you without you explaining it. Someone who enters your life at exactly the moment you were ready to give up on connection. Someone who doesn't compete with your growth. Someone who doesn't become threatened by your light. Someone who doesn't constantly ask you to prove your worth. Instead, they simply recognize you. And when that happens, something inside you may become quiet. Because for the first time, you won't feel like you're performing. You won't feel like you're trying to convince someone to understand you. You won't feel like you're fighting to be accepted. You'll simply feel at home. That's the part I want you to remember. Your true family is not defined only by blood. Sometimes family is revealed through purpose, through loyalty, through shared faith, through compassion, through people who stand beside you when there is nothing they can gain from you. And if you've been through a season where people disappeared from your life, don't automatically assume that your story is ending. Maybe some doors had to close because you were carrying people into a future they were never supposed to enter. Maybe the loneliness wasn't punishment. Maybe it was separation. And separation can be painful. But it can also create space. Space for healing. Space for clarity. Space for the people who are actually meant to walk beside you. If you've ever felt like you didn't belong, tell me honestly in the comments. I always felt different. You don't have to explain your entire story. Just leave those words, because sometimes admitting the truth is the first step toward understanding it. And here's something even deeper. You may have been searching for your true family without realizing it. Every time you searched for people who understood you, you were searching. Every time you prayed for someone who wouldn't abandon you, you were searching. Every time you wished someone could see beyond your mistakes and recognize your heart, you were searching. You weren't simply looking for company. You were looking for belonging. And now the question becomes, what happens when belonging finally finds you? What happens when the people connected to your next chapter begin appearing? What happens when you no longer have to chase relationships? What happens when the right people begin recognizing the person you become? That is where the story becomes powerful, because sometimes the greatest revelation isn't discovering that you were alone. It's discovering that you were never forgotten. You were simply being prepared. And perhaps the reason certain people could never understand your journey is because they were never meant to understand the destination. So don't go backward just because you're lonely today. Don't reopen doors simply because you miss what was familiar. Don't confuse familiarity with destiny. Some people are familiar because they were part of your past. That doesn't mean they belong in your future. Your future requires people who can respect your growth. People who can celebrate your progress without secretly wishing you would return to your old self. People who can hear your dreams without laughing at them. People who can see your wounds without using them against you. People who can correct you without humiliating you. People who can love you without controlling you. Those are the connections worth protecting. And chosen one. If you've been waiting for that kind of connection, don't lose hope, because the absence of the right people does not mean you will always be alone. Sometimes your life becomes quiet before it becomes connected. Sometimes God allows you to walk through a season where you learn to stand without depending on everyone around you. Not because you were created to be alone, but because you needed to learn the difference between needing people and choosing people. That's a powerful difference. When you need everyone to validate you, you accept almost anyone. But when you know your worth, you become selective. You stop asking, will they accept me? And you start asking, do they respect the person I'm becoming? That shift changes everything. And perhaps that is the real beginning of your reunion with your true family. Not when someone suddenly appears, but when you finally become ready to recognize them. Because sometimes the person you've been waiting for is also being prepared somewhere else. They're learning, they're healing, they're growing. They're becoming strong enough to recognize you when your paths finally cross. And when that moment comes, you may look back at everything that happened before and understand why certain relationships had to end, why certain doors closed, why certain people misunderstood you, why some seasons felt unbearably lonely, not because you were forgotten, but because your story was still being written. So if you're listening right now and something inside you is saying, this feels strangely personal, don't rush past that feeling. Sit with it. Ask yourself, who am I becoming? Who actually brings peace into my life? Who respects my boundaries? Who celebrates my growth? Who makes me feel safe enough to be honest? And most importantly, am I still chasing people who have already shown me they don't want to walk with me? Because your next chapter cannot fully begin while you are desperately trying to resurrect the previous one. Let the past be the past. Let the closed doors remain closed. And make room. Because your story isn't only about losing people. It's about discovering the people who are worth waiting for. And there is still something you haven't realized about why your true family is beginning to come closer. Because the moment they recognize you may also reveal something about yourself that you have been unable to see until now. And that revelation may change the way you understand your entire journey. But chosen one, there is still something you haven't realized about why your true family is beginning to come closer. Because the moment they recognize you may also reveal something about yourself that you have been unable to see until now. And this is where you need to listen carefully. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, but some people arrive carrying a piece of the confirmation you have been praying for. You may not recognize them immediately. You may not understand why the conversation happened. You may not understand why you suddenly met someone at exactly the right moment. But chosen one, sometimes heaven doesn't send a loud announcement. Sometimes God sends a person, a conversation, a connection, A door that suddenly opens, a message that arrives when you are about to give up, and you call it coincidence. But deep inside, something tells you it wasn't. Have you ever met someone and felt like you had known them for years? Have you ever had a conversation that lasted only a few minutes, but somehow touched a part of your heart that nobody else could reach? Have you ever encountered someone who said something you desperately needed to hear, at the exact moment you needed to hear it? Chosen one, pay attention to those moments, because your story may not be changing in one giant event. It may be changing through a series of small confirmations, one after another, a strange encounter, a repeated sign, a sudden opportunity, a person appearing out of nowhere, a door closing that once seemed impossible to close, and then another door opening without you forcing it. This is what divine timing can feel like. You don't understand it while you're inside it. You understand it later. You look backward and suddenly realize that had to happen. That person had to leave. That door had to close. That delay had a purpose. And perhaps the hardest part of your journey was not losing people. It was believing that God still had a plan while you couldn't see it. That is where many chosen ones become exhausted. They pray, they wait, they hope, they see nothing changing, and eventually they begin asking, God, did you forget me? Why is everyone moving forward except me? Why am I still waiting? Oh, why do I keep losing people? Why does my path feel so different? What? Chosen one. You were never forgotten. You were being prepared in a place where nobody could see the process. Think about a seed. When a seed is underground, it doesn't look powerful. Nobody applauds it. Nobody sees the roots growing. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But underneath the surface, everything is happening. And perhaps that's what your life has looked like. Quiet on the outside, transformation underneath. You thought you were being delayed, but you were developing roots. You thought you were being hidden, but you were being protected. You thought you were being rejected, but God may have been separating you from environments that could not support the person you were becoming. And now, something is shifting. Your sensitivity is changing. Your discernment is becoming stronger. You are starting to notice things you used to ignore. You can feel when someone's words don't match their intentions. You can sense when a place is no longer right for you. You don't need to argue anymore. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You simply know, and chosen one. That inner knowing matters, because when your life begins moving toward the people who are truly aligned with your purpose, you won't have to force every connection. You won't have to beg. You won't have to chase. There will be a different kind of peace, not perfection. Peace. And that difference is important, because your true family may not look exactly like the people you imagined. They may come from places you never expected. They may have completely different backgrounds. They may not share your history, but they will recognize something in you, your heart, your purpose, your faith, your journey, your calling, and they will not constantly make you question whether you deserve to be there. That is one of the signs. You won't constantly feel like you have to earn your place. You won't have to perform. You won't have to pretend. You won't have to become smaller. You will be able to breathe. You will be able to speak. You will be able to say what you really feel. And somehow, you will realize, I don't have to explain why I am different anymore, because they understand. But here's the part that may surprise you. Before heaven reveals the right people, heaven often reveals the wrong connections. That's why some relationships have become uncomfortable recently. That's why conversations that once felt normal suddenly feel empty. That's why you may have started noticing patterns you couldn't see before. The disrespect, the manipulation, the one-sided effort, the constant criticism, the hidden jealousy, the feeling that you were only accepted when you were useful. Chosen one. Don't ignore what you are beginning to see. Sometimes revelation doesn't come by showing you something new. Sometimes revelation comes by finally allowing you to see what was already there. And that can hurt, because you may discover that someone you trusted was never carrying the same intentions you were carrying. You may realize you were fighting for a relationship that the other person stopped fighting for a long time ago. You may realize you kept calling it loyalty, when it was actually fear of letting go. And when that realization comes, don't hate yourself. You were loving with the information you had. You were trying with the heart you had. You were hoping because you believed people could change. There is nothing shameful about having a good heart, but chosen one. There comes a time when wisdom has to protect what love cannot, and that may be the season you're entering now, a season of discernment, a season where you stop asking everyone to understand you, a season where you stop chasing explanations, a season where you allow God to reveal people's hearts through their actions, because actions eventually tell the truth. And once you see the truth, you cannot unknow it. This is why your true family is connected to your next chapter. The people meant for your future will not require you to betray yourself to keep them. They will not demand that you abandon your values just to belong. They will not punish you for growing. They will not become angry because you are becoming stronger. They will understand that your journey is changing, and chosen one, you are changing. Maybe that's why the old environment feels uncomfortable now. You outgrew it. Maybe that's why certain conversations no longer excite you. You changed. Maybe that's why some friendships suddenly feel distant. Your priorities changed. Maybe that's why you have started craving peace more than attention. Your spirit is tired of pretending. And this is where your hidden identity begins to reveal itself. Not a royal identity because you are better than everyone. Not because you are supposed to look down on anyone. No, your identity is revealed through responsibility, through character, through purpose, through the way you respond when nobody is watching. A true calling doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you more aware, more compassionate, more disciplined, more intentional, and perhaps that's what God has been developing inside you during all those lonely seasons. Character, because if the right people entered your life too early, you might not have recognized them. You might have accepted anyone simply because you were lonely. You might have confused attention with love. You might have mistaken familiarity for destiny. But now, you are different. Now you can recognize peace. Now you can recognize sincerity. Now you can recognize when something is not for you, and that is why chosen one. Don't be afraid of the silence anymore. The silence may be preparing you to hear the right voice. Don't be afraid of the empty space. The empty space may be making room for something new. Don't be afraid of losing people who were never willing to walk with you, because sometimes the greatest evidence that a season is ending is that you finally stop trying to force it to continue. And if you have been experiencing this lately, if people have suddenly disappeared, if certain doors have closed, if your heart has been craving a different kind of connection, write this in the comments. I am ready for my right people. Not because writing those words magically changes your life. Write it as a reminder to yourself. A reminder that you will no longer chase what keeps running from you. A reminder that you will no longer beg for belonging. A reminder that you will trust God to guide the right connections into your life. Because chosen one, your true family may already be closer than you think. And the most unexpected part, you may already have encountered one of them. You may have overlooked the connection because it didn't arrive the way you expected. You were looking for a dramatic sign, but heaven may have given you something much quieter. A person who checked on you when nobody else did. Someone who believed in you when you doubted yourself. Someone who encouraged your faith instead of feeding your fear. Someone who never demanded that you become someone else. Maybe you didn't recognize the significance. Maybe you thought it was just kindness. Maybe you thought it was just another conversation. But sometimes, the smallest moments carry the biggest confirmations. So look again, not with fear, not with desperation. Look with discernment. Who brings peace? Who respects you? Who encourages you toward God instead of away from Him? Who wants to see you become stronger? Who can celebrate your success without competing with you? Who stays consistent when there is nothing to gain? Those are the signs worth watching. And chosen one. There is another reason this matters, because your true family isn't only coming to comfort you. They may also help you step into something you have been afraid to accept, your purpose, your calling, the part of your life you've been postponing because you were waiting for someone to validate you. But what if validation was never supposed to come first? What if obedience came first? What if faith came first? What if you were supposed to move forward before everyone understood? That is the next part of your story. Because once you stop chasing belonging, you become free to walk toward purpose. And once you begin walking toward purpose, the right people become easier to recognize. So don't rush, don't force it, don't go searching desperately for a true family. Let God reveal what is genuine. Let time expose what is false. Let your actions show you who belongs, and let your peace become part of your discernment. Because chosen one, the people who are truly meant to walk beside you, will not require you to lose yourself just to keep them. And the moment you finally understand that, you will realize something powerful. Maybe your entire life wasn't preparing you to find people who would accept you. Maybe your entire journey was preparing you to recognize the people who are already meant to find you. And that is where the next revelation begins.